Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing another Make Up Your Mind. This series is inspired by Christina Brook here on YouTube. She does this every so often when a new palette is released and she wants to find out if she has similar shades in her collection and if she actually likes the color story that's in the palette she is contemplating buying. So today we're talking about the new Charlotte Tilbury palette. Well, it's been out for at least a couple of weeks, but it's still pretty new. It's the Pillow Talk Palette of Dreams, and I'll show you a picture right here. It is of course in the legendary Pillow Talk series, and I actually own a couple of Pillow Talk palettes. So I have the regular one, I have the Pillow Talk palette of Pops, and I think that's it. She also has this long palette that I did contemplate buying at some point, but now I'm sort of over it. So the question for today is, can I dupe the new Pillow Talk palette with things in my own collection? Maybe even with Charlotte Tilbury herself. Or do I really need it? So that's what we're talking about today. Real quick before we get started, I want to thank you so much for clicking on my video. My name is Cecile, I live in the Netherlands and I upload videos about makeup and fashion. I'm currently finishing up my university year, so the uploads have been a little bit less frequent. But in the summer I hope to pick up the pace again. So yeah, definitely subscribe if that sounds interesting to you, and thank you so much if you decide to do so. So now let's get into the video. So I have a pile of palettes here, these, that are all sort of in the same color family as the one that came out. As you may have noticed, there have been about 10 rosy releases in the past couple of months. Many people on YouTube have done ranking videos with them. Usually the Charlotte Tilbury and the Patrick Ta come up really high. Patrick Ta is not really that readily available here, and I'm personally more interested in Charlotte Tilbury, so that's what I'm focusing on. But I guess you could substitute with any of those. So when I look at the new Pillow Talk of Dreams palette, I see that it's a little bit deeper. Wait, let me pick my original. It seems I've forgotten to bring my original Pillow Talk palette to my parents' house, but that's okay, I can just look it up. So the Pillow Talk original palette has two mattes, one sort of mid-toned and one a little bit lighter than mid-toned. On me it's a nice crease and deepening shade, but I am very fair and I have heard the complaint that many people can't use that palette because their skin tone is actually deeper than the deepest matte in the palette. There's this beautiful prime shade with a shimmer in it, and there is a pop shade. The pop shade Pillow Talk palette of Pops has 4 pop shades in different rosy kind of tones, rose gold, burgundy, something like that. Now from what I understand, this new Pillow Talk Dreams palette is a little bit deeper, and also I'm not sure if it has the original pop formula. Featuring metallic and matte shades. See, I think, and I could be wrong about that, but I think that there isn't such a distinction between the two metallic shades in this palette. So there's not a satin and a pop, there's more like 2 metallic shades. Anyway, the shades are supposed to be a lot deeper, and I like deep shades and I really like these burgundy tones. But it is an expensive palette, it's 50 euros, and well, I think I should think wisely about buying this. And if I see this pile of similar shades, then I don't think I really need it. But there has to be something, there has to be said something for the Charlotte Tilbury formula, which is difficult to do. So we're starting off with our regular Pillow Talk palette. Like I said, I don't have it here, but I think the 2 matte shades are both lighter than the 2 matte shades in the new Pillow Talk palette. So I guess even though the tones are similar, I guess they don't really count. Now I do feel like the top left shade and the bottom left shade, so the metallic shades, are kind of similar to these two in the Pillow Talk palette of Pops palette. but the formula is very different. I don't really love this formula. You have to dig in quite deep and then you get a nice glittery effect, but I like that metallic shine that her new palettes have a little bit more. So I guess formula wise, those don't really matter either, or they don't really count either. I want to look for something a little bit better. I want to find shades that are similar in shade and similar in texture. So we're going to look outside of Charlotte Tilbury. And let's just go through the pile and I'll swatch some stuff on my hand and we'll see where we get. So one that I wanted to include is the Cashmere palette from Viseart. Even though these shades are a little bit different, I've always found that Viseart shades, especially the metallics, are very similar to Charlotte Tilbury. I'm actually wearing the Soleil La Plage palette right now, and it has the same sophisticated satin metallic sheen. The thing is, this is definitely a more cool toned palette, so I don't think the shades are very similar, but I did want to include it. Yeah, on closer inspection, I'll show you again. None of these are warm enough for the Pillow Talk palette, so I guess this one is a no. Moving on to another palette that a lot of people have, and this is the Nude Rich palette from Huda Beauty, one of her little Obsessions palettes. This is one of my favorite deep burgundy palettes. And if we look at them side by side, well, I'll hold up a picture for you. I'd say that the Pillow Talk Dreams palette is a little bit more orangey, peachy. And this one is definitely more burgundy. But I feel like this shade over here could be kind of similar to the deep shade in the Pillow Talk of Dreams palette. And I definitely find that Huda's mattes, even this one in the Obsessions palette, are kind of similar to Charlotte Tilbury's new form of mattes. So I guess we have a contender for one of the shades. And if I look at the other ones, I actually find this shade quite similar to the deeper metallic in the Charlotte Tilbury palette. There is a pink shift in this one, and I think the Charlotte Tilbury is more pure bronze. But I'd say these are fairly similar. And I was suspecting this palette to be a good contender. If we look further, I think that this shade is actually quite similar to the lighter metallic in the Charlotte Tilbury palette. So we're 3 for 4. Yeah, I'd actually say that's pretty similar. And if we want to finish it up, we can actually look at this matte, and then I'd say this matte is the closer contender, and swatch that on top. I'll hold up these swatches and I'll put some swatches of the Charlotte Tilbury palette next to it. What do we think? It's slightly different in tone. This is more pink, pinky purplish, burgundy, and Charlotte Tilbury, it's just, I really love these tones. I love the original Pillow Talk as well. It's just, Mel Thompson once said that she tried to dupe the Pillow Talk palette with so many shades, and all the time the shades were either too brown or too pink. To nail that specific type of pinky brown was apparently quite difficult, and I feel like I didn't quite get it with this, but spoiler alert, I'm actually very content with finding these colors in the Huda palette. I feel like I may not need to look any further, but we're going to, just to see if we have options. A small palette that I thought we could include is this one from Chanel. This is from their limited edition of their limited collection for fall 2020. And it's the palette in the shade, or in the, with the name Candeur et Séduction. And I think this one is a very nice reddish palette. It's definitely more intensely red. But if we look at this shade, it has that nice brownie tone. It's very similar to the Huda Beauty. It's a little bit more pink. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's just as much off as this one was. but it's a nice shade and I think it fits the theme, but I don't think that any of the other shades do. But if you have this palette, but if you bought this palette, my dog is running away. If you bought this palette when it was available, I think it's somewhere, it's sort of between the Pillow Talk and the new Pillow Talk palette, but with a little bit more red. I think it's similar enough, maybe. All right, stepping into something a little bit more affordable. We have the Icy palette from Glamlight. This is the Cherry palette. And this is what the color story looks like. It's definitely a lot brighter, but you can always find some little bit more or a little bit less saturated colors in bright palettes. And what I'm interested in this one, and this one, and this one over here. So I can already tell you that these are a lot brighter. And now that I'm swatching them, they seem even more bright. Hello! He likes to make noise with his little paws. Well, I guess it's obvious. I really love these colors, but they're nowhere near the Charlotte Tilbury palette. I feel like these are a lot more close. And I didn't realize how red that Glamlight palette actually is. And these are the less saturated colors. But just for fun, let's hold it next to the Charlotte Tilbury palette. I feel like this top one sort of would match with that palette. It would sort of go with these other tones. These two are definitely too red. I do really like this tone though. Alright, I guess the Glamlight palette wasn't really a contender either. Now let's take a look at the Lunar Beauty Moonspell Volume 2. This is what the palette looks like. And it's definitely in the same, at least half of the palette is in the same sort of color family. And what I want to look at are Sally for the lighter matte and Mildred for the lighter shimmer. So this is Sally and this is Mildred. I actually think that's not too bad. I think all the other shades are a little bit too purple and I think these are a little bit lighter. But personally, I would like to combine this Pillow Talk Palette of Dreams with something a little bit more lighter. So I think this would be a nice addition to it. And I feel like this shade is very close. This Mildred shimmer. Very close indeed. And if we want to stay within this Lunar Beauty palette, because I can understand if you don't have all these palettes, then could we add something to make it complete? I feel like we could use Mel for the darker matte. And I feel like we could use Grams for the darker metallic. So let's see what that would look like. Ah, it's interesting. I guess this matte is a lot more brown, but you could mix it with a little bit of Maggie, which is this purple. I just did it on that half. I guess you could choose. You could go more brown or more purple, but there is definitely possibilities there. And I feel like this shade it's beautiful, by the way. It's not that far off. It is a little bit lighted. So I feel like you could possibly get away with using this instead. Of course, the shades don't match as well with each other, so that's something to keep in mind, but I do think it's a similar vibe. And then finally, I want to quickly look at the Mothership 7 and 8 by Pat McGrath. I don't think these are going to have similar shades that are similar enough, but I do really like their formula, and their quality of mattes is, in my opinion, quite similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. So this is Mothership 7 Divine Rose. And there are definitely some contenders here. So we have, I'm not going to look up the names, but we have this burgundy shade. And we have this, this one maybe? I guess it's not that similar, but I'm going to swatch on my other hand. I guess this one is very deep, but this one does look quite similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. And I know a lot of people own these palettes, so I think it's good to include them. And then we have Divine Rose 2, which definitely has some similar shades. I feel like this one could maybe be similar to the lightest matte. And then this one could definitely be similar to the darkest metallic. And then this one, the nice shimmer shade, could be similar to the lightest metallic. So those 3 shades are from Divine Rose 2, and I think we're very close with those. If you combine the deep shade from Divine Rose 1 with these 3 from Divine Rose 2, I think you have a very similar idea. So in conclusion, I really don't need this palette. Like I said, I was expecting that. If I ever find it in store and I swatch it and the quality is amazing and I have a little budget over and I don't know, it could happen. Don't blame me if it happens. But I feel like it shouldn't have to happen. I can definitely dupe this, especially with my Divine Rose palettes, but also with the Huda Beauty. And if I really want to, I can even do something with Lunar Beauty. I think Glamlight and Viseart and Charlotte Tilbury herself don't really get there, but these other colors do. So these are all my Charlotte Tilbury inspired shades. I hope you enjoyed this video. For me, it was very helpful to do this. I hope it was fun for you to watch, and I'll see you in the next video.